Recently in an interview, the director of the Kingdom Hearts series, Tetsuya Nomura, said that initially he had a story in mind where both Roxas and Xion never returned. In today's video, we will be going through the events of Kingdom Hearts 3 and see if him not being in there makes the story pan out much differently, and in addition to that, we will also see how the story would change if he never showed up in any other game after Kingdom Hearts 2. If that's something that interests you, then kick back and stay tuned as we dive deep into what would have happened had he not been there. First off, let me preface that Roxas is my absolute favorite Kingdom Hearts character and has been for a very long time, so of course him being included in Kingdom Hearts 3 was a dream come true, and it got even better when they finally made him playable in the Remind DLC. So while it's difficult for me to imagine a world where he isn't in Kingdom Hearts 3, that's what I'm going to be putting myself through today, so do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, and maybe I'll do a video just like this for Xion too. So then, to start, let me take you back to the events that take place in the Keyblade Graveyard, with Axel getting absolutely trashed and Xion about to murk him. We all know what happens from there. Roxas shows up, Kairi is kidnapped by Mansex, and the two nobodies end up taking the place of Axel and Kairi as part of the 7 Guardians of Light. It's a really impactful scene and my favorite in the whole game, but what if it didn't happen that way and Roxas never showed up? Well, Axel might have died right there by the hands of Xion, no less. But then again, Xion wasn't meant to be there either, so it might have been Isa or even Xemnas himself who offed Axel. I believe this all could have worked out just as well, with the scene still being emotionally captivating, with Lee and Isa's friendship being the selling point. Maybe Isa would have stepped in to save Axel himself if Xion and Roxas weren't there, but then I don't think Axel's story would ever be properly concluded. While his friendship with Isa and this mysterious girl they talk about being friends with certainly will play big into the story in the many games to come, it would still leave too many loose ends with the other friends he made. Now going back to Xion, let's say instead of killing him, she still comes to her senses via Sora's Talk no Jutsu, Kairi is not kidnapped, and somehow the three of them fend off Sykes and Xemnas, with Axel still apparently down for the count, because at just this one specific moment he cannot use his Keyblade, which is another video entirely. The only way for all of this to work without Roxas is if Kairi isn't taken away by Xemnas in the scene, because as stated by Xion herself, Roxas will take over Axel's spot and she will take over for Kairi. But then again, maybe this scenario wouldn't have happened either, because Xion also wasn't originally going to return, as I stated before. And there's still other ways for the Guardians of Light to maintain their lucky number of 7, with Terra returning to his own body, and I guess you could also count Donald and Goofy if you really wanted to. So in conclusion, if Nomura wanted to, I suppose he could have written out Roxas and Xion and still had a decent story to tell. But that's if we're going to just completely ignore the events of the 2 games that came right before this one, the side games as they're called. Roxas's inclusion in Kingdom Hearts 3 at the end of the day is entirely necessary because of one word: closure. If Nomura hadn't built up his character past the events of Kingdom Hearts 2, let his story end right there atop Castle Oblivion alongside Naminé, then yes, I could see why he would not need to come back. But seriously man, you had an entire game that was all dedicated to healing the hurt Roxas was feeling. As much as I despise this game for being the second time we've redone Kingdom Hearts 1 in terms of setting and somewhat similar story, it does give the biggest reasons for Roxas's major flashy comeback. The whole plot of Recoded is extremely convoluted, with the main plot of it being to teach Sora about what hurt feels like, and while it would make for a very interesting test of his character, it's all kind of thrown in the crapper because the Sora we play as in this weird entry in the series isn't actually Sora, but a data reconstruction of him to be sent inside of Jiminy's journal. If that sounds confusing, it's because it is. This is why I tell people to watch the cutscenes or just skip the game entirely. However, one saving grace is the fight that concludes it all, when we learn the cloaked figure we've been following since the start was Roxas all along, and the hurt that needed mending was actually his hurt, the hurt of losing his friends and not being able to see them again. To me, this scene is both pointless but beautiful, and exactly what the fight in KH3 Final Mix should have been. In Kingdom Hearts 2, Roxas sort of just accepts his defeat and tells Sora he's a cool guy and a good other, but this time he gives no fucks about any of that, and it really hits home on what he set out about to do. That's why I'm saying this would all be really great if the real Sora got to experience this. But Nomura did kind of fix this later on, when the real Sora encountered Roxas yet again in another spin-off game, Dream Drop Distance. It's just one scene. It happened out of nowhere, and yet it's still one of the best ever. In a random encounter that occurred outside the realm of sleep, Roxas meets with Sora one last time, this time to share all of his memories and all of his hurt, so that the real Sora will know what hurt is, and this just makes him mad. He tells Roxas that he does deserve to be his own person, and if Sora says something, it almost always is like a promise that he plans to keep one way or another, and that's what makes this so emotionally impactful. This is why I think Roxas coming back in Kingdom Hearts 3 to take revenge against the organization, to have his happy ending, become his own person, and be reunited with his friends was simply the best and most satisfying moment in the whole game. To me, it doesn't make sense to have it any other way, to simply write him out of the story after the last two mainline entries. Surely he could have just left him in Kingdom Hearts 2, and while I'd miss him, I could at least live with it. And that being said, I think Roxas has had a very good run. He finally has his happy ending, reunited with all of his friends, and he can once again be at peace. Although I don't think this will be the last we see of him, with Kingdom Hearts 4 on the horizon and a debt to be repaid to Sora, the one who brought him to his happy ending. Thank you all very much for watching. This has been a pleasure putting this video together. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit subscribe and join me on this hype train towards the release of Kingdom Hearts 4. And hey, if you want to see more deep discussion videos like this one, tell me in the comments, and hey, join my Discord too while you're at it. It would really mean a lot to hear your feedback and to interact with fellow fans of the series. As always, I've been Key, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.